So I'm covering this jet today. Can you guys guess which country it's from? Hello. I am Aoya Laipe, and I like to hop into top tier matches in War Thunder and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. Welcome to my channel. So before I explain how to kill people with this jet, I guess I really need to explain, the skin you're seeing, or more accurately, the skin you can't unsee. This is a custom skin I made, and the reason I did it is because when I decided to cover this plane, because it's actually an interesting plane, I realized it also happened to be the only Australian jet in the game, but it didn't, look distinctly Australian in any way, so I figured, you know what, I'm gonna change that. And I made sure to fill this skin with, a lot of obvious jokes and references, as well as, some deep cuts that only Australians will understand, such as these flame decals that totally don't look like anything in particular. And yes, I will put this on live.warthunder if you want to download it and use it yourself. There's a link in the description. Now, the best part is that I haven't even shown you the down under side of this jet. So, speaking of deep cuts only Australians will understand, please look at the emus on the tail fin. Now, let me ask you a question. What's the one creature in Australia that is more terrifying and unnerving than a fully grown, bloodthirsty emu? I'm not elaborating. If you don't know who that is, the comment section is your friend. All I'm gonna say is that I know most viewers won't get the joke, but when I showed that to a few Australian fans, they laughed so hard that breathing became harder than finding an affordable apartment in Sydney or Melbourne. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Australian fan service episode, because as long as there's only one Australian jet in the game, you're not getting another one. Anyways, let's get to the actual video. Okay, so why am I covering this jet? What's special about it? Well, that's simple. What's special about this jet, and the reason I'm covering it, is that it's awful. The F-111C has virtually no advantages in air-to-air combat, and it's extremely unforgiving, which makes sense because it's a bomber and I'm playing it wrong. Like, in real life, it is literally a strategic bomber. Saying this thing sucks at air-to-air combat is kind of like saying a machine gun makes a really bad spear. I'm just using it wrong, but there's a good reason for it. Normally, I take a plane that's very good at air-to-air combat and then just go on some insane killing spree and kill literally every single last enemy player. But I figured for this video, it would be interesting if I instead took a bad plane and did decently. And don't worry, I'm still gonna go double digits and stuff, alright? I have standards. And the reason I'm doing this is that doing decently with this particular plane requires a lot of general game knowledge. And that means this plane is actually fairly useful for teaching the game in general. In other words, this plane is very good at teaching the fundamentals because the fundamentals are all that it has. Now, to be clear, this jet can team wipe. My first ever game with it was actually 22-2, which is, a solid proof of concept. And I'll link it as bonus footage in the description. But you have to understand, it needs an impossibly specific set of circumstances to do that well. And I'll explain why as we go along, it'll become pretty obvious. And my general rule is that if part of the strategy involves spamming the matchmaker all day until the stars align, I'm not covering that strategy. Because doing that and then saying, this is how the plane works, is not only hacky and dishonest, but it's a massive waste of time for all concerned. Alright, so let's get down to business. This is the first victim right here. Rather than going down the middle, or coming up from above and then shooting down, or flanking around right off the bat, I'm instead actually going to go pick off this straggle over here. And I'm picking him because I saw a side climber, this high, this early, with a long chemtrail, and I figured, you know what? That's probably an F-105, that fits the flight profile of an F-105. And F-105s don't have flares. As it turns out, I went to go after him and it was actually an F-105, my guess was right. And an isolated jet that does not have flares is one of the few things an F-111C can safely and reliably kill. Now, the F-111C does have AIM-9Ls, and those have a pretty long range for all-aspect infrared missiles. But, as you saw a moment ago, they're also particularly easy to dodge at long range. And I think it's pretty clear that the second shot here only connects probably because either the guy didn't see it or he thought he already dodged it. The F-111C gets 6 AIM-9Ls, and AIM-9Ls have, as I just said, a very long range. They can kill people at a very long range, but only if they don't know it's coming, because the AIM-9L is pretty easy to dodge. What this means is that you can launch stealth attacks from ranges that most players at this battle rating are not expecting. And that stealth attack thing is kind of your only real advantage in air-to-air. And given the flight model, you basically have to adapt any air-to-air strategy around essentially dishing out surprise missile deaths. You are the worst type of player. And there's a kind of an art to this. If you want to ambush people, look for anyone who is in a premium or a squadron jet, because, you know, if you bought your way to the top, you are less likely to know what you're doing. And this is particularly true of one specific plane, the A4E, like, you know, this one here that's about to die. The A4E is a pretty mediocre jet, but it's an American squadron jet. And together, this means it's basically always flown by someone who has no idea what they're doing. The other big ways to increase your odds of surprising someone is to attack them while they're in the dogfight and essentially third party them, because they're focused on the dogfight, they're less likely to see you, or to attack from above them, or particularly to attack them from their upper left or upper right. I know I say this like every video, but most players are really bad at checking those specific angles, upper left, upper right. Also, just in general, remember, if a plane is slow, it can't dodge any missile, so pick off the slow players. Now, I know you guys want to know more about this specific plane, right? But there isn't a whole lot of advantages here that I can, you know, press. The flight model here is what you would expect, given that this is a strategic bomber. It's bad at turning, but the energy retention is truly horrifying. And on top of that, this is TTAA, top tier air arcade. So the already pretty ass acceleration on this thing is heavily nerfed, because there's the afterburner cap. So while the F-111 is very fast on paper, it's actually pretty slow in practice in TTAA. Any jet with a reasonably above average speed will easily outrun you even if you are careful. And any jet with any speed will outrun you if you are not careful. And as I sort of alluded to earlier, this jet is extremely similar to the American F-111F, which makes sense because Australia, you know, bought these things for America. It's an American jet. So I know you'll be like, this is just another copy-paste American jet, but I mean, to be fair here, Australia, you know, did bring this jet into their country and make it their own. So at the end of the day, it's no less Australian than East Timor's oil reserves. So anyways, this jet has shockingly terrible survivability, and not even a dogfight, but just it has terrible survivability just being around other players. Now, there are some less than obvious hard counters and soft counters you can use to deal with this situation. And the main soft counter is you want to make yourself an inconvenient target. Most War Thunder players will attack the closest player who looks easy to kill. So you really want to make sure that you never look easy to kill, especially if you actually are really easy to kill. And if you are in an F-111C, you are easy to kill. Okay, so how do you make yourself an inconvenient target? Well, for most planes, one of the best ways to do that is terrain masking, you know, hide behind mounds and stuff like that. But that doesn't really work here. You're not flying this jet through a narrow canyon and having a happy ending. You probably won't fly into the wall of the canyon, but you definitely will break your speed and just get murdered doing all the turns. It's like getting between an Australian and a video poker machine. You're risking life and limb. The second way is actually something this jet is reasonably good at. You pre-flare. Now, most players are familiar with pre-flaring, where, you know, someone's about to shoot a missile at you, so you drop a flare to screw up the shot. But it's very easy to forget that if you're dropping countermeasures, you just look really annoying to kill. Like, it's really annoying to shoot at someone who's already dropping countermeasures. And this jet has a lot of countermeasures. So one of the things you can do is that whenever you're near other players, you just spam countermeasures before they even think of attacking you. And if they see someone spamming countermeasures and someone who's not spamming countermeasures, they'll just shoot the guy who isn't. Also, quick side note, the jettison missile button on this thing is broken, so if you want to get your missiles off the rack so you can get a tactical reload going, you have to fire them into the sun, or take some like completely hopeless, wasteful pot shot. The third approach is to just be really far away. People really don't like flying long distances in this game, even though jets can cover that distance pretty quickly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm circling around and reloading a lot further away from enemy players than I would in basically any other plane, in basically any other video I've ever made. There's really no reason you can't hang out, you know, 8, 9, 10 kilometers away from enemy players if you're on a big enough map. It doesn't take you that long to fly back to them when you're ready. This might be the first jet I've ever featured that really needs that kind of safety margin, but if you're a new player and you're still learning the game, you can do this with pretty much any plane. It'll be very useful. If you fly a long way away from the action, take a breath, and come back in, it'll be a lot easier for you to manage all the chaos. It's not the theoretically optimal way to play the game, but you have to remember the limiting factor for most players is a skill issue, not like the technical limits of their plane. And lastly, this is the fourth method to make yourself an inconvenient target. you want to make sure the enemy player has to turn to attack you when you don't have to turn, and preferably make sure they turn and climb if you can. The way you do this is you come in from the side in a straight line as fast as possible, and make sure you're coming in at an angle where the enemy player has to make a big turn to attack you, such as if you come right behind them, they have to make a 180 to kill you. This makes it a lot less likely that they will even bother trying to kill you, and it will buy you a big head start if they do. Now, as for hard counters, yeah, this plane's pretty light on those because most enemy players could chase you down, and you can't dogfight them, so if they catch you, you'll die. But if you come in fast and you force them to turn to come after you, you will have a big head start, and that should buy you enough time to reach the cover of friendly players and get your pursuer third-partied, or to fly over your own airfield and have the AAA kill them for you. So in other words, doing decent with this plane requires you to keep track of not only where all the enemy players are, but also where your own friendly teammates are. And that's a hell of a lot easier to do if you're on a really big map, because most of the players are going to be so far away they don't matter, and that means you don't have to think about them, and there's a lot less stuff to keep track of. And to sort of bring the issue full circle, any reasonably experienced player in a jet can dodge an AIM-9L kinetically, without using flares. And jets that don't have flares will have the flight performance to kill you if your AIM-9L does not get them first. And you can really only surprise people once or twice before they just start focusing you. So, as I mentioned earlier, the way you team wipe with this thing is really, really hacky. So, the way you do it is you spam the matchmaker until you get a really big map with a really weak down tier. You then ambush the enemy planes that have flares, and if you get rid of all of those, you hope that none of those people then know how to dodge AIM-9Ls kinetically, or they'll get you with the jets that don't have flares. And you know what, I'm gonna insert a clip of this happening, because if you kill those jets and snowball them back to prop planes, well, the F-111C has a 6 AIM-9Ls, and prop planes can't dodge those. The community term for that is war crimes, that the prop planes got war crimed. And I'm not gonna show you me, Ben Roberts smithing some prop planes and then calling it skill. Hold on. If you don't know who Ben Roberts Smith is, he's kind of like the Australian version of Lance Armstrong. He was this heroic feel-good guy for a while until these crazy skeletons came out of his closet and his reputation just fell off a cliff. Although, I guess in this case, the skeletons, and also the cliff for that matter, oddly enough, were far more literal than metaphorical. And also in the background footage, yes, I do manage to dogfight and kill this F8 that comes after me. Oh, and just to avoid any confusion, because I know people are gonna think this unless they say otherwise, I am not and never have been Australian. I have visited Australia twice, however. The first time was when I was really young. I went to Steve Irwin's zoo, the crocodile hunter, remember that? He was so cool. And I was really excited to see him, but then he decided to feed a crocodile while holding a baby for some reason, and everyone got really angry with him over that, so he had to go into timeout for a while, and that was when I happened to be visiting, and then the dude got randomly murked by a stingray before I got a chance to go back, which is really crazy when you realize his job was to wrestle crocodiles. He got killed by a freaking fish. Honestly, it was the first and only time I've ever been disappointed by a celebrity. And as far as WTF Australian swimming deaths go, it's a solid number 2 behind, of course, that prime minister you guys managed to lose. Yeah, if you haven't heard this before, back in the 1960s, the Australian prime minister disappeared while in office. He went swimming off the beach, he got caught in a riptide, and they never found his body, and then they named a swimming pool after him. Yes, the Memorial Swim Center. I actually put the logo for that on the side of this plane because I just thought that was hilarious. It's the world's most appropriately named swimming pool. Anyways, back to this game though. This is where I get into a really, really, really sticky situation. I'm thinking I can ambush a few people while they're distracted dogfighting my teammates, but then my teammates get shot down at a very inopportune time, and then I get swarmed by several enemy players and they just start wailing on me. You have to make a lot of calculated risks to do even decently with this plane, and sometimes they don't work out. Now, the only possible way out of the situation is to rely on those guys right there. Remember, I can't even dogfight one guy, let alone 3. My least bad way out of this is to survive long enough that I can reach those guys there and have them shoot the enemies off my tail for me. I know there's a powerful urge to try and aggressively dodge the attacks, but this plane's flight performance is so bad that if I do that, I'm definitely gonna die. However, not only is it entirely possible that the enemy players will just shoot at me and miss, but you have to remember, they were just shooting at my teammates, so they're probably low on ammo anyways. So I figured just making a dash for the safety of my teammates was a better bet than actually trying to dodge their attacks, and it looks like I was right. And my plane is completely messed up, but thankfully my airfield is right there. I'm a little bit fast and I don't have, you know, a whole lot of flight controls, but I'm gonna be able to essentially crash close enough to the runway that my plane gets repaired and they don't actually manage to kill me. And yeah, as you can see, I'm gonna do a couple bounces. You know, it's a pretty sloppy landing, but I do in fact land it. Australian jets famously do not crash, and today is not going to be the day that changes. Hello, welcome, thank you for flying Qantas. We are the airline that is statistically speaking least likely to kill you, which is particularly impressive when you realize that most of our fleet consists of Boeing jets. Anyways, for some reason my HUD disappeared while I was crash landing, because sure, why not have one more thing going against me here? And the button to bring it back wasn't working, so I had to go fishing around the settings for a minute to see if I could fix it. I swear, you think about these buttons as often as you think about the Governor General. Oh, and if you don't know who that is, the Governor General is this pointless ceremonial position whose only real power is the ability to overthrow the Australian government whenever they feel like it. But no one really cares because only one of them ever actually had the balls to do it. You know what, I'm just going to fast forward through this next little bit real quick, get us back to the action sooner. And while I do that, I'd like to take a second to thank Omen and Resvelger7193, 2 Australians who felt compelled to give me free money when I previewed the skin. Australian money, yes, but, you know, money nonetheless. And this, of course, raises 2 key questions. First, how many real dollars is 1 Australian dollar worth? And also, are super thanks subject to tariffs? Also, my custom store link is in the description. My decal is not quite out yet, but I suspect that the wait will soon be over. But in the meantime, you can still get the discount, but you won't get the decal because, you know, there is none yet. And it's also not retroactive. Anyways, now that I'm back in the fight, I'm going to do something that might seem really, really strange to pretty much anyone who's been paying attention to my advice this video so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plow straight through the entire enemy team as fast as I can, killing a bunch of them as I go. And there are no friendly players, and there is no friendly airfield on the other side of them to save me from them chasing me down and killing me. Now, you're probably thinking, like, isn't that guaranteed death? Like, why are you doing that? Like, if you just piss everyone off and then have no way to hard counter them, like, you're definitely gonna die, right? Well, actually, I do have a way to hard counter them. It's just a very, very niche way. To start, I had a long stretch where I could accelerate coming out of my airfield, so I'm moving, you know, unusually fast, even for this plane. And the enemy players, because it's a head-on, they have to make a really brutal 180-degree turn to kill me. That's the biggest turn you can get someone to make. All of that gives me a pretty big head start, and that means the enemy team won't be able to chase me down before the game ends. Also, thank you to this F3H2 for popping out at just the right time to make this kill streak double digits. Side note, this is not how you dodge an AIM-9L. If you just make like one turn and then go straight, like all it does is cut the corner, you know? Anyways, my F111C went on a double-digit kill streak and then got first place on the losing team. I'm not sure if that reflects poorly on my team or the enemy team, or both. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like and comment to feed the algorithm, and if you subscribe or ring the bell, you won't need to remember how to spell AOLIPay next time you want to watch one of my videos.